Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Stitch 1993 and you're here again with my lovely wife Shelby talking about the Let's Talk About Movies We Own. This is now part 3 of comedies. We got this and then one more part, and then I swear we'll talk about something else. It's just us talking about the over 1,200 movies we physically own on either DVD or Blu-ray. We may eventually get to our VHSs, but I have a whole separate series that I talk about VHSs, so that's kind of safe for that. Anyways, so if you haven't already watched the last two comedy versions, we are going through them alphabetically, and the first movie is going to be Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1. I thoroughly enjoy this one. I did not enjoy the Hulu sequel, which was History of the World Part 2. I felt it felt rushed, which is weird because the first one came out in like the 70s or 80s, and this he had like 30 plus years to work on it, and it just seemed so. Anyways, but going back to the original, great kind of just parody of everything, starting with, I believe it does start with cavemen and goes right up to, I'm trying to remember where the stop off at. Do you remember where they end up?
I don't remember where they end. I remember distinctly the French Revolution.
Okay, yes. So they did do the French Revolution. And I think they went a little beyond that. It's a good movie. It's just been so long since I've freaking seen it. But it's Mel Brooks directing and starring in, along with some other memorable cast. I don't think Madeline Kahn is in this one. She's usually in a lot of. Mel Brooks tends to use a lot of the same cast, but I think this one he kind of used almost an entirely different cast for the most of it, outside of himself, of course. But yeah, we don't have like Gene Wilder or Madeline Kahn or really any of the mainstays there. Your thoughts?
So I do enjoy this one, but it's not my favorite Mel Brooks one. It's kind of towards the bottom of my list of his. Not that it's not still enjoyable, but when you put it up against like Young Frankenstein, it doesn't compare.
Fair enough.
And for me, I'm not a huge fan of movies where it's just like clips of something.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that. I like a more overarching narrative. So for me, that kind of takes me out of the enjoyment. But it is fun. It is a lot of fun to watch. It's got the classic Mel Brooks comedy in there. You're going to get some laughs out of it. But I would say if you're into like sketch shows, you'll enjoy this. But if something that's more disjointed isn't your style, I would pass.
Yeah, I was just looking up. So it's in with the French Revolution. And it starts with cave, goes through the biblical times, ends with French Revolution. And then there's the whole coming soon attractions, which is the part 2, which, yeah, I don't even think they did any of those in part 2. Anyways.
That's another thing that History of the World Part 1 has over the second one, is they went in order.
They did go in order.
Whereas you're jumping back and forth with the series so much, it makes it hard to follow.
And I don't think it should have been a series, honestly. I think it should have just been a movie, excuse me, in chronological order, just like the first one was. But moving on, A Knight's Tale. So, great film, great interpretation of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And I was introduced to this one in high school because we finished learning and reading Canterbury Tales, and so we then watched the movie. And let me tell you, if you haven't read Canterbury Tales, definitely at least check it out, because there are so many hidden jokes in A Knight's Tale that unless you are familiar with that book, you are not going to pick up, including some of the characters and their names and their interactions with each other. there. But great film overall. This is, of course, Heath Ledger. This was after 10 Things I Hate About You.
I believe so.
Okay, but before The Dark Knight. This was also, what is his name? He's in all the Disney movies now. It's Alan Tudyk. He's great. And I'm forgetting the princess's name, but she's really good in it too. Although she's kind of whiny, and you really don't really care if he ends up with her. But it's more just about. I mean, it's A Knight's Tale, so it's really just more about his story and him becoming a knight. And it's just a really, really awesome. Love the introduction where they do their version of "We Will Rock You." In the style of that type of
it's in the medieval
time period style of song. This was after Shrek, so yeah, I might have gotten some. But if you like Shrek, definitely check this out because it's kind of the same vibe-ish. Not so much parody, but just that medieval time, but putting a modern spin on it. Also, if you enjoy, what's the Cinderella movie called?
Ever After?
If you like Ever After, check out A Knight's Tale. Because it's kind of the guy's version of Ever After, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
So I love this movie. It was my first introduction to Paul Bettany.
That's right, he is in this.
He is in this. He plays Chaucer.
He does, yes.
So, I really enjoyed him in there because he plays sarcastic so well.
He does.
Which is why I love that he's Jarvis.
Yeah. And then later Vision.
Yeah, but with Vision he doesn't get to be sarcastic.
True.
With Jarvis he still kind of can.
True. Anyways.
So yeah, I loved his sarcasm in this. I love how he played off of Alan Tudyk and Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of on the low end for Heath Ledger movies for me. Just because Brokeback Mountain and 10 Things I Hate About You exist.
But those are two separate. I would say for comedy, I don't know if he's done any other comedies, but I would actually put this as like top of the list of best Heath Ledger films, and just in general.
I mean, it's still enjoyable. When I say it's towards the bottom, it's kind of like a right up against each other kind of thing.
He doesn't have a long list of movies.
He doesn't. Unfortunately, because, situations have happened.
Yeah.
But I do really enjoy this. I do agree the princess in the movie is really bratty. And that's like my main note against it. It makes me not want to watch it because I want my female leads to not just be annoying.
Yeah. She is the damsel. Alright. Knives Out. Oh, this is a great film. What's his name? I just think this is 007.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. He does a great Kentucky Fried character. And I feel like he loves doing that more than he loves talking in his regular British voice, because he has used that in not only the Knives Out movies, but another movie that we'll eventually get to in a little bit. But yes, so this is a great whodunit murder mystery. Think Clue. Think the Basil Rathbone, Sherlock Holmes, Pink Panther. Not as it's definitely still a comedy, but it's not like slapstick. But it is definitely a comedy whodunit murder mystery film with a stacked cast.
Yes.
You pretty much know almost right off the bat who it is, but they do it in such a way that you're like, you kind of second guess yourself, at least the first time you watch it. But there's the nice little breadcrumbs being laid throughout it, that if you follow it, you'll figure it out along as Daniel Craig's character's figuring it out. I know you really like this movie as well.
I love this movie. Okay, first of all, it was so refreshing to see Chris Evans play a not Captain America character. It was so much fun seeing him play just a complete jerk. Just, he's horrible I love it. Give me more of that. I also like that it's kind of a fun caricature on the affluent families.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'll have so many different personalities in that family, but all of them are equally terrible.
Yeah. Even the ones that try not to be terrible, like Jamie Lee Curtis and the girl from 13 Reasons
Yeah.
Why.
They're horrible. They're horrible people. And it's so much fun to watch, again, because Daniel Craig sells it the whole way through.
He does. Like, you like, at first it's weird hearing him in that voice if you're not used to his other films where he uses that voice. But he just kind of slides right into the character, and you forget that it's Daniel Craig.
He loses himself in the character,
He does.
and it's so much fun to watch. If you are squeamish, I'd be a little cautious watching it, because there are some scenes that are kind of gross.
Yeah, it does use the gross out humor. It
doesn't
for a weird way to them, and they honestly could have cut that out of the character, and it would have been just fine.
Yeah, they could have cut that, because that was the only thing in the movie that made me kind of
like.
But honestly, when it comes to the Knives Out movies, I will gladly take a new one every year.
Right.
I love them. They're so well done.
Do one with the Muppets, please.
Yes!
They'd have Daniel Craig be Daniel Craig, but then it'd be, Knives Out situation where everybody else is a Muppet except for, like, one or two humans, and something like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be a murder. It can just be like a theft. Like, you do a whole Great Muppet Caper, but it'd be with Daniel Craig or something like that. Anyways.
Yes.
Legally Blonde. So I enjoyed so we got both of them, Legally Blonde 1 and then Legally Blonde 2. I forget what the subtitle is for 2.
Yeah, I forgot the subtitle.
But so I enjoy 1. It's nice. It's fun. It's a happy movie. Reese Witherspoon is great, of course. I do not like the sequel. It almost feels like a parody of like the first one,
I'll
which
give you
is
that.
weird. Because she's built up throughout the first movie that she's like basically odds are against her the whole way through, even when she's got her first child and everything. But she wins and everything. And then the second one, it's like they didn't know what to do with her, so let's have her fight for her gay dog's rights. And I'm just like,
I mean, the fact that the dog's gay was just in there. They're fighting to stop animal testing,
okay, so then
and they're appealing to one of the other. I think it's a congressman,
yeah,
to the love he has for his pet, which is the pet that
I don't know. I've never been a big let's stop the pet thing, because it's been really overdone. Even by then, it had been really overdone. In other movies had done it better. I really think it should have been a jump, like 5 or 10 years after the first one, and now she's kind of doing the same thing, but she's now trying to get like a seat in the Senate or something. But her having, that's just my opinion. It's just like she's trying to be a judge or something like that. I don't know. Like, just show more character building than just her doing something that, I don't know, kind of felt beneath her, in all honesty. Your thoughts, because you're more of a fan.
I do agree. So, the first one I've loved since I was little. I saw that movie when I was little, and I was just like, her. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. I also like that, for the most part, in the movie, it's not a whole lot of girls hating on other girls. Like, you have a little bit, like, you have that with Vivian in, like, the first half of the movie, but then she clues into how crappy of a person Warner is, and she's like, oh, no, I'm gonna hang out with her now.
Yeah.
So you get more of that, like, girls supporting girls, and we need more of that in the world. Reese Witherspoon's adorable in it. It was my first Luke Wilson movie, and I've adored him ever since. It also was just, at least for like a lot of the girls I went to school with, it was kind of one of the quintessential role models a lot of girls had. Was, you know,
that.
you had Elle Woods, Hermione Granger, those type of characters were the girls that I went to school with were looking up to. And then with 2, they take all that beautiful character development for Elle and squish it down. And the reason we have 2 is because it came in a pack. Like, they're in the same
double feature pack.
It's a double feature pack.
Yeah.
You couldn't find Legally Blonde without getting Legally Blonde 2 for the longest time.
For nowadays. Hey, at least it's better than for a while they had the triple pack where they included Legally Blondes.
Let's not talk about that.
No, but your thoughts on 2?
2 is a mess. I've watched it like once or twice. There's a way they could have done the I want to fight for animal rights better. And I feel like they even kind of address that a little bit in the musical, because one of the side characters in there is like done the Peace Corps, fighting for animal rights type of characters. And that was done great. Like, you buy her character.
It sounds like it shouldn't have been the main plot point. It should have been like the B or C plot point.
You could have had like she's trying to run for office, and that's one of the things that she's running on, and that would have been fine. You could have still had the scene where she's going to investigate. Well, she's trying to find Bruiser's birth family, and find out that his mom, I think it was being used for animal testing. And you still could have had that being her catalyst to wanting to go into that. But you could have had it to where she was running for office, and I think she was just clerking for somebody.
Right, yeah.
Which is common to, you know, clerk for somebody in office if you're wanting to eventually go into office. But, yeah.
All right. The Little Rascals. So this is the 1990 movie based off the Little Rascals series from the 30s, 40s, 50s. And it was mine and probably a lot of people's first introductions to the Little Rascals, just as a series in general. But the movie is fantastic. All the children actors really put their heart into it. I don't think any of them ever went on to do anything else after this film, outside of like maybe like I think one of the kids prior or while he was doing it was in like some Juicy Juice commercials or something like that. I don't remember. I don't think anybody else went on to do anything. I think the villain is one of the Culkins though, but I don't think he does. He's not one that went on to do other stuff. I'll have to look that up. But overall, it's just great. It's kind of pulling from a lot of the original Little Rascals stories and just putting them all together to make it a one nice big movie story. So you got plots from the race. You've got plots from the He-Man Women's Haters Club. You've got plot points from fishing in the clubhouse burning down, and all that on top of it being, you know, a little love story between Alfalfa and Darla, which was a thing they did in the original show as well. Spanky's great. The kid that plays Spanky is adorable, just like he was the original series. If you like the movie, definitely go back and check out the show that, you know, was the black and white show, because it honestly, outside about some behind the scenes stuff, the show itself is pretty decent, but the behind the scenes stuff is kind of sad. Your thoughts?
So I love this movie.
Yeah,
I love everything about this movie.
Yeah.
No notes in terms of critique. It's one of my favorite movies. I also think it might be the most quotable movie from my childhood. I still quote this movie on like a weekly basis, especially if we have anything with the meal that involves pickles. I'll just sit there as I'm putting pickles onto whatever I'm eating going, I got a pickle. I got a pickle.
I got pickle today. Hey, hey.
Just all those kids were so sweet. They were all so cute. I loved the dog. The dog had my heart. All those little kids had my heart. I just love everything about this movie. And then when we do live in the South. My mom is a huge Reba fan. And she passed that down to us. And as we're watching the movie, I remember little kid me getting towards the end where they're giving the prize away for the race, and Reba's there. And just little kid me, oh, Reba! And I loved it. Oh my goodness. It's pretty much a perfect movie. And we need more like little kid actors like that. Like we have like the late kid age, early like middle tween school. And teen age, and they're pretty much all good. But you don't see like little kids that good very often.
Yeah. So going back to Daniel Craig and his KFC voice, Logan Lucky, which is a great film. No notes, as it even says in the film, it is basically Ocean 7-Eleven, where it's just it takes place so it's set in between West Virginia and North Carolina, and it is kind of a heist film where everybody has southern accents, and you got Daniel Craig, you've got freaking Adam Driver, and Chris
Channing Tatum,
all in these very strong southern accents, and he pulled them off really well for somebody that's lived around people that talk like that. And so, story behind this was, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it looked really dumb, because I'm like, really? Adam Driver and Daniel Craig with southern accents? I think Channing Tatum had done something southern prior, so his voice wasn't too bad, but like Adam Driver was still doing Star Wars, and then Daniel Craig was, I think, still doing the 007, or had just finished his last 007 movie, James Bond movie. So I'm just like, I don't know. But then you really wanted to see this because you just thought it was hilarious that they had these really funny southern draws, and it ended up being such a good movie. I think it was like, I'm not sure if it was my number one film for that year.
It was high up on your list.
It was high up on both our lists. But yeah, I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything, but it is them trying to steal a bunch of cash unnoticed through while a whole kind of Daytona 500 type of race is going on. And because the one guy got fired because he has a bad hip, and the company saw that as something that they could get sued for, even though he said he was fine with it. And then Adam Driver's character is missing an arm because he was in the military. Oh, and it's got Seth MacFarlane in there. It's kind of the pseudo one of the villains.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great. Your thoughts on it as well?
So I really had to talk you into seeing this
You
movie.
did. You really
You were not into it at all.
It did not.
And I'm just
the trailers did not make it look good. I will say that.
So at this point, before this movie came out, I was already completely sold on Adam Driver. I enjoy Daniel Craig whenever he's not playing James Bond.
Fair enough.
And Channing Tatum's Channing Tatum. I've been watching him since Step Up. So I was already sold there. And then the trailer started showing up everywhere, and I'm just like, this looks really funny. This looks really cool. And I was describing it to you, and you went, I don't want to see that. I'm not interested at all. And I'm just like, look, the past 3 movies we've seen have been movies we've seen for you. We're going to this one.
Ended up being really, really cute, really funny.
It was so good.
Got me. Okay, so this is I know, that's just giving my Southern card. This was my introduction to John Denver, West Virginia.
Take Me Home,
Country Road.
Which, shame on you.
I know. As I said, here's my country card, whatever. Southern Card, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I had never heard that song, which was funny because then that year it was like played in like 3 separate movies.
I know.
But anyways,
so the cast in it was great. It's a pretty stacked cast. So again, we got Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, Daniel Craig, Hilary Swank. Sebastian Stan is in this movie, and they didn't show it in any of the trailers. So when he showed up, my little brain just blew up because I love Sebastian Stan.
She's a big stan for Sebastian Stan.
I am a Stan. The daughter in the movie is so adorable. She's just, you want to just cuddle her. She's so cute. Daniel Craig has some of the best one-liners in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so Channing Tatum and Adam Driver are enough to watch the movie, but Daniel Craig is my favorite part of this entire movie.
And he doesn't even show up until
midway through
it, in like Act 2.
Like, he shows up in Act 2, and you're just like, what? Because it's so good. His first couple lines just completely sell you on his character.
Mm-hmm.
The first few things out of his mouth are so good. Because you don't expect that voice, and then he sells it, and I love it. This was also my first time seeing Riley Keough. She's also in Zola.
Oh.
Yeah. She plays the sister in this.
Oh. Okay.
Her character's great too. The whole thing was fantastic. I watch this every couple months. Usually when you're out doing something, I'll just watch this movie. Especially if I'm having a bad day. You won't have a bad day anymore after watching this movie.
Yeah. The Lost City. Oh, okay. So this was another one she had to talk me into because, but not as much as Logan Lucky. Like, I saw the trailer, I was like, it looks kind of funny, but I was thinking, we'll just wait for it to come to streaming, because it felt like a streaming type of film, not really movie. I personally would have gone and paid to go see in a theater, but you really want to see it because again, it's Channing Tatum and what's her name?
Sandra Bullock.
Jungle adventure movie where Sandra's character gets kidnapped and then Channing Tatum's character has to go rescue, and neither one of them is the smartest person in the world.
Yep.
So they're kind of playing off of each other. They're trying to figure out how to outsmart these bad guys, who themselves is not the smartest people. And the bad guy is played by Daniel Radcliffe, and that's kind of why she wanted to go see it. And I was like, all right, fine. And Daniel Radcliffe is good. I mean, he's great in every role, but he plays a villain pretty well, especially one as crazy as the one in here.
So I knew his character was going to be unhinged. I didn't know how unhinged he was going to be, and I hadn't really seen him play unhinged yet, so I was really interested in it. So it already had like 3 of my favorite people to watch in it. Sandra Bullock, I adore her. Channing Tatum, we've already talked about him a few times. And then Daniel Radcliffe, who will show up later on, all just littered all throughout these videos. So I was already sold there, and then the story was so much fun. It was so much fun to follow. The little bits of action that are in there are well thought out on the way to just make you crack up as you're watching it.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved this movie. I'm glad I talked you into seeing it.
And speaking of love, the next one is Love and Monsters, which is just a cool, kick-ass movie. It's got some of the most imaginative monster and creature effects and that I've seen outside of like Pokemon and like Jim Henson movies. Like through this film, I'm just like, man, if this had come out in the 80s and was like using, and for some of them they even use real creature effects. So I was like, if this had come out in the 80s, I would have, outside of the cast, you could not tell the difference because it feels so much like that type of 80s creature feature movie, where it's set in a post-apocalyptic world where just one day I don't even think they ever explain it. Just all of a sudden, all these animals and creatures just mutate, and they're just these giant monsters now. Some of them are just giant versions of the bug they were to begin with, but they're like massive. I'm talking like skyscraper story taller, and like there's a snail that's like the size of a boulder, and a centipede that's like almost a leviathan size type of creature, and just in a crab that's like the size of almost like a giant Titanic type ship. It's so cool. And it's like this teenage kid, he's just like, he was, when all this happened, he was like dating this person, and they separated because of all the stuff going on. And so for years he's been living underground, kind of like in a vault from Fallout. And he's just been trying to radio out to like every other vault that he can come across on the radio station. Finally he finds her, so he has to go back up onto the surface and trek across this new it's not even desolate land, like all it's all because it's all bugs and animals that were the cause of the apocalypse. It's all green and bright. It's really colorful. So he has to trek across this. He comes into a couple of other humans along the way, and we get to see so many beautiful creatures. And there's even a scene where it's like he just comes across an android, because it's kind of set in a little bit in the far future. And there's just a really, heartfelt scene between him and this android that's kind of slowly dying because the battery's dying, and we get to see probably the coolest creatures in there. It came out in 2020, so like not a lot of people watched it because it kind of just got thrown onto like a streaming site. Like it was supposed to come out in theaters, and they're like, we don't know what to do with this. Here it's on, I don't even remember where it was on. It might have been on Amazon. And then, DVD. So a lot of people it flew under a lot of people's radars. So, this was just great. Again, it's a comedy on top of all that, too. And your thoughts?
100% agree with all that. I love this movie. It's so imaginative. It's so much fun. We are going to say movies are a lot of fun with comedies, because that's what comedies are. They're meant for you to have fun with. I love that they let the guy who's playing a teenager play a teenager. Like, he's making some dumb decisions the whole way through this, because he's thinking like a kid. He's thinking like a teenager. He's not thinking like a rational adult who wants to get there safely and alive.
Which he does come across some of those rational adults in there. One played by Yondu, or the actor that plays Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. And
it's just, I love when people who are writing these movies think that out. Like, they're like, what would a teenager actually do here, and not what would I do here?
Right.
Because it's just, there's a huge difference between how a teenager's brain works and how an adult's brain works. And to see that actually represented well, and still keep the comedy going, still keep the action going, still keep the creatures and everything going, just makes the story that much better.
Yeah. I'll let you start out with Major Payne.
Okay, so I grew up on Major Payne. We watched it at least once a month growing up because it was just so much fun. I will admit, after watching this movie when I was little, I never could read The Little Engine That Could the same way again. But we were always big Wayans Brothers fans growing up. Between Major Payne, White Chicks, My Wife and Kids, which they were all over my childhood. I love that. I love the comedy in it. The voice that he puts on to do Major Payne is hysterical. It's another example of really interesting, well thought out kid characters played to perfection by just the greatest little group of kids.
So yeah, again, I also grew up with it, not as much as you did, but I did grow up with Major Payne. And I grew up also with The Little Engine That Could, so I can read it in its normal way. But I can see where some people would, the only way they can read it is in the Wayans Brothers voice. And speaking of, if you like any of the Wayans Brothers comedy, like White Chicks or In Living Color, you'll really enjoy this. I don't have much to say on it. It's a great, kids boot camp, kind of the underdogs kind of story. And again, the kid actors are really good in it. It's got a lot of really good visual gags as well as dialogue because of how Marlon, or I think that's whichever one of the Wayans brothers, how he speaks. And it's also it's so weird though for me because the love interest is Tiffany from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I'm just like, wait. It's really weird seeing her play something a bit more down to earth type of character, whereas opposed to her character in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Next one is Mad Money. Take this one away because this was I'll give you my thoughts really quick here. It was okay. Go away.
So yeah, he doesn't really enjoy it because he doesn't like Diane Keaton.
I don't.
For me, it's like a good kind of background noise movie. It's fun to have on. You'll get a few laughs out of it. It's one I like to put on a lot when I'm cleaning and don't feel like trying to fight the vacuum cleaner and my music. So I'll just have that on because I know a good bit of the dialogue. So if I can't necessarily hear it while I'm vacuuming, I can just fill in the blanks. It's nothing super deep. It's nothing super big.
It's a heist movie.
It's a heist movie, but just like in the most basic of terms.
Yeah.
If you just want a good movie to like pass the time where you don't really have to pay attention to what's going on, this is a good fit for that.
Yep. All right. So next one is The Mask, the Jim Carrey classic, which means I don't have much to say that not everybody and his brother and sister has already said about it. It's the classic Jim Carrey as The Mask. I mean, if you haven't seen it, definitely do yourself a favor and see it because it's Jim Carrey at his peak. This is the same time he was doing Dumb and Dumber and Cable Guy. So before he did, serious roles. And I will say the animation actually holds up pretty well for what it's supposed to be during the time frame there. Do you have anything?
I'd say it's a good example of a family movie that's not wholly family friendly. Like, it's a good excuse for a parent to sit back and watch something aimed at them that the kids will still enjoy because it has the zaniness of Jim Carrey. Like, you can get away with showing your kids the movie that has some raunchier jokes because they're not going to know what's happening.
It's just like a regular Tex Avery classic. Most of his cartoons were like that, where it's like, yeah, it's a cartoon, but it's got some jokes for the adults. All right, Mean Girls. This is, again, another classic film. I'm not the audience for it, but I can appreciate it, and it's really good. Everybody that's acting in it, Lindsay Lohan, Tina Fey, everybody does a fantastic job. No notes for anybody, really. And again, but it's one of those movies, because it's such a classic, I don't really have much to say on it that not everybody else has said. I do know it's one of Shelby's favorite movies, so I'll let her say everything.
I love this movie. I saw this movie in theaters. My aunt took me to see it. For me, that was like the coolest thing. So I saw it on a school night. I came home. I bragged about it the whole next day at school because nobody else had seen it yet. I literally saw it like the night it came out.
It was like, what, PG-13 rated R movie?
Yeah, but it came out when we were in middle school, so we were all old enough to see it.
Okay.
But I saw it like the night it came out. Or like that week it came out and nobody had gone to see it yet. So I came home. I loved every second. This movie. The one line that got used the most from me was when Damien is roasting the one little girl who's yelling at him about how he shouldn't be in the bathroom by chasing her out of the bathroom going, "Danny DeVito, I love your work." I thought that was hysterical. I quoted it all the time because at the time my brothers were still all shorter than me, so I used that on them. I just, every single second of this movie, the dance, the dance they do to Jingle Bell Rock is burned onto my brain. I have no notes. This is one of my absolute favorite movies. I watch this thing all the frickin' time. Half the time you're out doing laundry, I'm watching Mean Girls.
All right. And Miss Pettigrew lives for days. So I remember seeing this film. I don't remember a lot about it. I do enjoy Amy Adams' character and Sarah Rachel McDonough, whatever her name is. Miss Pettigrew, actress is
Frances McDermott.
Frances McDermott. Thank you. So they do well in it. Yeah, I really don't have much thoughts on it because I've seen it. I just don't remember it a whole lot. But you, kind of the same thing for you. 'Cause
Yeah.
before we recorded, she had to watch a trailer because she didn't remember. I'm like, this was a movie this was one of your movies.
So I remember bits and pieces of it, but I couldn't remember a good chunk of the plot because it's been a few years since I've watched it. It is one of those movies that's just like a cute girl movie. It's a good turn your brain off, sit back and enjoy on a rainy day kind of thing. It's very calm. It's messy, but it's calm.
And she means messy as in drama.
Yeah, it does. It has almost high school level drama.
Yeah.
But on an adult, kind of it's kind of like if you took the personalities of the side characters in an Austen novel and the opulence of Great Gatsby and made it a comedy. So it's got the messiness and everything in it. Again, it's also just one of those films that I just like watching when I just want to relax. Not necessarily turn my brain off, but I just want to relax and I want to have a girl's day. If I'm dyeing my hair at home and I want to just chill and block out the world. It's a good time.
All right, so we're on to the Monty Python films, all two of them. So first one, of course, is going to be Holy Grail. It is a classic. It's a lot of great quotable lines, a lot of great quotable skits. Yeah, this is where we get stuff like "Tis But a Scratch" and the was a Holy Hand Grenade and all that. But personally, because by the time I had gotten around to seeing that, it just all those quotes and shorts I had seen kind of out of context, to where I kind of. I technically had already seen the movie before I seen the movie. It's just kind of one of those. It was in the zeitgeist of everybody's, all the people that are into that, and it just nerd pop culture in general. That by the time I got to it, I'm like, I don't really see. I get how popular this film is. I don't really see how it stayed popular, but we'll get to that. So. But that's my opinion. I do say it is a classic movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely go and check it out. This is your favorite Monty Python film.
It is. So it's also probably because it was my first Monty Python film. I honestly think with the Monty Python movies, whichever one you're exposed to first, that's going to end up being your favorite.
Fair enough.
Just because the comedy is consistent between all of them. They're all the same level of comedy. Just whichever one you're introduced to first, whichever one you quote the most, that's going to be your favorite one. Holy Grail was mine. Again, it's a very quotable one. It's a lot of fun. I also tend to like more period piece movies than set in current time movies. So that's another point for it for me. And it has a little bit more of a narrative than the next one.
Yeah, so the next one is The Meaning of Life, which, as Shelby said, it was the first movie first Monty Python movie I was introduced to. So, of course, that means it's my favorite. This is more along the lines of just skits around the idea of the meaning of life or just life in general. It's got a lot of quotable songs and a lot of quotable, for me, lines. It is probably the one I've had known the least amount of people that have seen it. When you ask, usually they'll say, "Oh, I like Monty Python," or like The Life of Brian, but not a lot of people say that they've even seen The Meaning of Life. It's a great film if you like just Monty Python in general. Great one to see. It's kind of like, it's more along the lines of their show put into a movie format. So their show is Monty Python's Flying Circus, where it's just a bunch of random skits. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. And then, so Meaning of Life is basically that, but they try to put in, for the most part, there's like a couple ones where they're not even about it's kind of just either shoehorned in to where you're just like, this wasn't what this was meant for. This was just more Flying Circus stuff that was on the writing room floor that just never got into the show. But yeah, sometimes it's just random skits that have nothing to do with life or the meaning of life there. But great overall. Definitely check it out, along with just Monty Python in general.
So with Meaning of Life, I get the appeal of it. I see why people really enjoy it. It's not necessarily my thing because, again, it doesn't have like a single narrative. It wasn't really my thing. I have like one skit in there that I really enjoy, and it's because the song is hysterical.
Well, and this is going back to earlier with the first one we just talked about, Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, and you're not a big fan of skit-based films.
I'm not. I'm not.
Just really anthology films in general, as we'll get to when we talk about horror movies. Big Fat Greek Wedding Trilogy. Alright, so here's my thoughts on it, because I'm just not a big fan of that series in general. First one's actually decent. I think it's considered a classic nowadays. But it's a nice, just kind of turn your brain off movie. Second one is okay. I'd see that where they would have a need to do a sequel, the creator, who is also the female lead in this is her baby, so it's just kind of whenever she feels like making another one, she does. And so this one, I'm like, okay, I could see you have more of a story to tell. And then the third one just is bad. The third one is so annoying. It's like they filmed it when nobody really had a schedule that cohered, so it's like nobody really plays. They're all in their own little things, so they don't, unlike the first two movies, the characters don't interact with each other all that much. They interact with the new people, but the family that the movie is based around is not interacting with each other, which just kind of, and then the new characters they introduce are just god awful. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I know this is more of a youth trilogy, so you give your thoughts on it.
What he's not saying is he wants me to give my wrong thoughts on it, because
no, not your wrong thoughts. Just your fan.
I do really enjoy these. I do agree that the quality goes down with each film, but I don't think it's as stark as you do. For me, the first one is untouchable. The first one is so sweet, so cute, and it's really fun to watch the two families meld together by the end of it, because his parents are clueless. His parents have no idea what's going on. They're just like, oh, okay. Whereas her family's big and domineering, and they know everything that's happening at every single second. I love seeing big families like that function well. Because, even though there is some dysfunction in the family, the love is there. And it's just like, it's more of a generational divide than actual dysfunction for that part of the plot. And then the second one, the basis for the plot for the second one made sense because of one, they say the parents came over. Mm-hmm. It's so sweet. And then you get, the story with her daughter and, you know, trying to connect with her daughter. And it carries over into the third one, that same kind of mother-daughter conflict.
Barely.
It carries over enough. Because she, in the second one, the first real appearance of the daughter, she's at that age where those types of conflicts are going to start happening, and she's wanting to not be defined by her family, really, and that they do carry that over, because when you have a family that big and that domineering, it's hard to not just get sucked in to all those big personalities, and you have to like really fight for yourself to just shine. So we get to the third one, and this one, I feel like they could have spent a little more time to let it breathe, and the fact that her dad was gone. Like, they needed to spend more time, like, really letting that set, because the actor who played him had actually passed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and there's been other comedy films that has happened, and they do spend a better amount, or they write it better to where they may not have spent as much time or about the same time as the third film, but they do it in a much better way to where it makes you care that person has passed away, not just because the actor himself or herself has passed away.
I think it would have made more sense if more of the family came with them, or at least more of her immediate family, like her siblings, came with them for that, because it was something to honor their dad. So that I do feel like should have been done better. I do agree that the new characters did not meld well. That definitely needed to be improved on. But I also like that, you know, consistently the central couple we're following are just, they're continuously building that bond between them the whole way through. And that's like, there's not really much like really stupid arguments between our main couple. And I like, you can put stupid arguments between all the side couples all you want. They're the side couples. I don't care. But normally whenever you have a sequel or a third part, they find a way to put in the dumbest conflict possible between your main couple just for the sake of drama. And they didn't do that here, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll give you that. All right, and for our final film, it is Office Space, the classic movie about just, you know, a guy that has a 9-to-5 white-collar business job in a cubicle, and he hates it, just like pretty much everybody does with those type of jobs, whether you're doing the exact type of job that he's doing or just something where you're in a cubicle all day. And he decides to, from the being talked to by his ex-girlfriend, to go see a hypnotist about it, and the hypnotist passes away while he's hypnotizing him, so he just kind of has F it all the process on it, and instead of him getting fired, because he has now basically he doesn't have an ego, but now he's seen because he just doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. He's seen as being much more him being for a manager position, and just along with some high stuff that is based off of Superman 4, and it's just a really, I mean, it's a classic film, and if you haven't been in either that type of job, or they also kind of touch on the, at the time but still kind of true today, fast food or restaurant waitress type of position there through Jennifer Aniston's character, I don't think you're gonna enjoy it as much. You're still probably going to enjoy it, but there's a whole nother level of enjoyment when you've actually have been in either of the characters' shoes as far as the type of job position that they are in. Your thoughts on this film?
So I feel like the perfect time to get introduced to this movie is when you're in your early to mid 20s and you're experiencing your first real job setting.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like your first real job, because all jobs are real jobs.
Right.
But like your first, like really having to experience communicating with a manager consistently. Because when you're in high school, yeah, you'll have bad managers, but you can always have the excuse of, oh, well, I'll just have my dad go talk to him because nobody's going to mess with
legal guardian,
my dad's kid.
Yeah. And also you got the thought of, well, they're probably acting this way because I'm in high school.
Yeah.
And when I'm older, I won't be talked to like this.
And then you get older and it's worse. But yeah, it's like the perfect time to watch that is when you're starting to hit that point where you go, oh, all jobs suck.
Unless you find the job you love.
And then you will still find something that there's always going to be a part of every job, no matter how much you love it, that you're not going to like.
Yeah, fair enough.
So at some level, all jobs suck. So, having to deal with managers is one of those things that you have to experience it. And I will tell you, the manager from Office Space, like the main manager from Office Space,
the dad from Brady Bunch.
oh my goodness. So I've had managers like that. There's a manager I had like that pushed me into quitting a job that up until he started working there I loved. I will take dealing with Karens over dealing with managers like that any day, because at some point with the Karen you could say, keep going, I'll call the cops. You can't call the cops on your manager.
Well, I mean, for most
situations. Yeah. So like I sympathized with him the whole way through that movie. And then the one dude with the stapler, yeah, there's some days that leave you feeling like that. Just
they do.
This movie's
go
so
back
good.
And say the have a lot of the characters that you would see in an office or a restaurant type of environment. You'd have, for Office, there's always the one person that's a little too chipper in the mornings.
Yeah.
You got the person at the restaurant that is just way too into their job and is happy all the dang time, and you have no clue why, and it's really kind of weird. And they make the restaurant their personality, or their job their personality. You've got the people at the office that hate their job just as much as you do, but then they keep saying they're gonna quit for whatever reason, but they don't, mainly because job security. But then you've got the people that you absolutely have no idea how they got that position, because you're having to tell them, how to do your job on top of their job. And then you've got the pyramid of managers, and if something happens and you don't have one manager, sometimes you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 managers. Probably not coming nowadays. They wouldn't really come to your cubicle, but you would get like Microsoft Team meetings or emails about said thing. But that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoy hearing our ramblings on these and our thoughts on these films as well as other films, because we still got one more video that will come out in the next month of the comedy films, and then we'll be on to something new. I won't tell you until you'll have to subscribe and wait until the end of next month's video to find out what the next genre will be. And if you haven't checked out the other ones, we have already gone over animation and action adventure. So check those out, as well as check out my other videos about movies and television. And until next time, thank you and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.